Good afternoon and welcome. In recognition of National Hispanic Heritage Month and the State Department's inaugural Student Foreign Policy Symposium, Esperanza for the Next Diverse Generation of Foreign Policy Leaders, and on behalf of the U.S. State Department and the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, we are happy to have you with us. My name is Megan Lysett, and I am delighted to join you this afternoon as your moderator for today's session, Meeting the Need, Creating Equity, Access, and Prosperity for Hispanic Voices. I serve as an academic exchange specialist in the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the State Department. If you've attended any of today's earlier sessions, you know that this Student Foreign Policy Symposium is commemorating Hispanic Heritage Month, and it is doing so by highlighting the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, and here for students with an interest in international affairs. This will be a discussion with representatives from across the US government and the private sector on steps and measures needed to close the resource gap to create more opportunities for underrepresented students, in addition to initiatives that are currently making a positive impact on the Hispanic and Latinx student community. I personally know just how important DEIA is on campus, especially for helping underserved students achieve their fullest potential. As the first in my family to go to college, I earned both my bachelor and master's degrees from California Lutheran University, a proud Hispanic serving institution. I could not have graduated, though, without the help of the Department of Education's TRIO Student Support Services program. The course of my life was fundamentally altered by an academic exchange program for TRIO students. It was at the urging of my TRIO advisor to study abroad when I had no intentions to. I didn't even have a passport. My TRIO mentor nominated me to the Council for Opportunity in Education's Keith Sharon Global Leaders Program at the University of Liverpool. TRIO and the Council for Opportunity in Education provided me with the ability to imagine possibility and to successfully navigate a study abroad system not built to support or meaningfully engage first-generation college students, much less help them overcome traditional obstacles this community faces, like financial constraints of program cost, lost income, first-time passport applications and fees, and more. My sense of self was forever impacted by studying in Liverpool. It later set the stage for me to serve our country as a Peace Corps volunteer in Azerbaijan and now at the State Department. The Council for Opportunity in Education was one of the pivotal actors which opened doors for me by changing the trajectory of my life and my career. They continue today to expand college opportunities for low-income first-generation students, veterans, and students with disabilities. They are also a proud partner to the Fulbright program, one of the programs I am so lucky to work on in my position at State. And in my position, I support its DEIA mission. A hallmark of the Fulbright program has been its long-standing, robust commitment to diversity and inclusion. We at the Fulbright program are committed to supporting HSIs, its students, and all students from traditionally underserved communities. It's one way to meet the need, as the title of our session suggests. I now have the distinct pleasure of welcoming our esteemed panelists. Welcome, Dr. Lena Rodriguez, Senior Vice President for Policy and Government Relations at the Hispanic Association for Colleges and Universities, or HACU. You have the Latinx community's best interest at the heart of your work. Please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Lysett. I really appreciate that. Again, my name is Lena Rodriguez, and I have the distinct honor of advocating on behalf of 569 HSIs, and that represents 5.3 million students across the country. Similar to Lysette and her background and her experience, I too was changed by an internship that was offered by the federal government. One day, as I was walking through one of the buildings on campus, I noticed there was a sign up on one of the professor's doors that had a call for students that wanted to do a research project with NASA. And I remember thinking, I don't think I can do this. This is not my area. My area of study is in business. I have a PhD in business, and I thought, well, no one else has applied for it. So I decided to take the leap, and I applied for this particular federal grant research project with NASA. And I was the only one who had applied. So obviously I received the grant. It was an incredible experience. I had the opportunity to work in marshland. Yes, I said marshland. And I was able to work with numbers, which I loved. What that was I was able to go into the field, into the marshland, and I would measure evaporation rates of water, and I would compare those numbers to what was coming from a satellite up that NASA had put up in the sky. So it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. That experience ended, and about 2 weeks after that internship, I received a call from one of the NASA PIs, and they said, would you be interested in continuing your work with us? We will go ahead and support some of your studies in aviation. Again, I said, I'm not in aviation. I'm a business student, but I'm happy to take this opportunity and explore that. I ended up getting an additional grant and was able to study to get my private pilot's license. So it was an incredible experience. And this project opened up my world to possibilities that I had never imagined. So again, I am delighted to work for an organization like Haku that promotes education, specifically educational opportunities for Latino students. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Next, welcome to Ms. Caroline Gonzalez-Scott. For nearly 20 years, Ms. Gonzalez-Scott's career has centered on education and engagement, and now she serves as the Vice President of Programs for the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. In this capacity, she leads a team that manages and develops leadership and professional development programs for emerging leaders to build the next generation of Latinx leaders. Ms. Gonzalez-Scott.
Thank you, Lysette. It's really nice to be here with all of you this afternoon. As Lysette said, my name is Caroline Gonzalez-Scott. My pronouns are she, her, and I haven't even hit my 3-month mark as Vice President of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute's programs, but the organization has been a part of my life for the last 20 years. It was my first job out of college. I went back years later to manage a fellowship program specifically, and 8 years later came back to run the entire department, which is really exciting. But given that although I didn't necessarily have at the time the awareness when I was in particularly in high school and my early college years, access or information about internship programs like CHCI, over the years, I've seen what an impact it has and how it can really change the trajectory of individuals who may have never thought about a career in public policy, whether that's in the private sector or public sector, because as we all know, private sector influences policy very much as well. And just generally speaking, as someone who's spent the majority of her career on education and on the nonprofit side of working toward more equitable outcomes for individuals of the global majority, and as the daughter of immigrants and a first-generation college student myself, I'm just really excited to be a part of this conversation. So thank you for the invitation.
Welcome again, Ms. Gonzalez-Scott. Thank you for being here. I would like to ask Mr. Emmanuel Cabillo to start next by talking briefly about himself and about the many barriers he has broken down over nearly a decade as the senior advisor to the White House Initiative on Advancing Educational Equity, Excellence, and Economic Prosperity for Hispanics.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you so much for the introduction. Good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Caudillo, and I'm a first-generation professional. My parents are from Mexico. We settled in Los Angeles area, and even a little bit in Las Vegas as well, Las Vegas, Nevada. And so we grew up between those two areas. And one thing that I saw, how my career has been focused on educational equity, is the importance of access. Because when I was young, being first generation, I also had cousins as well who were a little bit older than I am, and were just as talented as well. And I saw them come into community college, being the trailblazers, going to post-secondary education for our family, but not having the supports, not having the guidance to help them through community college. And so that really affected me because I saw them like, there's really no reason why they couldn't complete it during this time. And so that really struck to me saying, well, something's off. Something needs to be done in regards to ensuring that access, ensuring the guidance and the mentorships and all that goes to ensure that our students are able to complete college. And so that's something that just drove me throughout my career. Going from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. Even my parents thought that my stay in Washington, D.C. would be for 2 years, but unfortunately, well, fortunately for me, I got to stay around a little bit longer. But in the end, once they saw what I was doing, they were going, okay, this is great, because we didn't know this public policy. We didn't know what this is all about. We know lawyers, what they do. We know what doctors, what they do, but public policy, what's that? But once they saw that, here are the things I'll be able to do in my work, in the federal government, then they go, okay, you're at where you're at. And it's been an incredible journey so far, being able to go to the Department of Education, first as a budget analyst. When they told me my first job, the first day, I'm like, how much dollars is my portfolio? How much funds am I managing? They go, oh, over 1 billion. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a lot. I couldn't even imagine that. To be able to work at the White House Initiative, be able to do, national policy work and be able to represent the Hispanic community. I mean, I almost have to pinch myself every day because it's like, is this what I'm doing? Is this, how is this possible, growing up in Los Angeles and even making it here? I can't believe it. But I think that just motivates me even more to do the work here, in order to be able to work for educational equity for our students, to be able to share the excellence that's going on in our community and provide those pathways to economic opportunity for our students and families and communities. And so that's just a little bit the journey here. But it has been, especially our new executive order, there's a lot to be done. I'm looking very much forward to working on it.
Welcome, Mr. Cabillo. Everything you said so resonated with me. Thank you. And our final panelist. He hails from my bureau at the State Department, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. Hello and welcome to our new Deputy Assistant Secretary for Academic Programs, Ethan Rosenzweig. Das Rosenzweig worked in higher education for almost 20 years before joining the U.S. State Department earlier this year. And most recently, he worked at Emory University's School of Law in Atlantic, Georgia, as Associate Dean, overseeing enrollment management and student services, including international recruiting and engagement activities. Das Rosenzweig.
Thanks, Lisa. I really appreciate you having me here. I want to thank everybody that's joining us today. You have a lot of things to do. You have lots of responsibilities, you have work, you have school, and the fact that you're sharing time with us means so much. It's very humbling, and it's also invigorating because we know that you're taking steps to be the next generation of leaders. You're already advocates. You're already pushing forward the values that you believe in, and we are trying to help provide you options to keep moving forward and amplify all the work that you're doing now. I hope that everyone here has an opportunity to serve on a panel. It is so humbling to join Lena and Emmanuel and Caroline and Lysette to provide information on how you can make the most maximum impact and service. I started my government career back when I had hair over 2 decades ago. I was a Presidential Management Fellow, which is a program that allows students who have completed a postgraduate master's degree or a doctorate degree or a law degree to enter government in a managerial position to try it out, to see if this is the right fit. And it's a 2-year commitment that I hope so many people will take advantage of. I was placed at the U.S. Department
Recording
of
in
Education,
progress.
and I do hope that people will examine that as well because it impacted my life. A theme you're going to hear today is leave your paths open. You never know where that next step is going to take you, and we hope that you have an open mind. I was struck listening to Emmanuel's comments that he was a budget officer and now he's a senior advisor to the president. I mean, you know, think of just these opportunities that we all have to share our gifts. I want to make sure we save enough time for everyone's questions, so I want to leave with 3 quick things. And being my fellow law students and lawyers that they remember, everything's always in 3. So I've got 3 points here. 1, I hope that for those that have joined us all day in the presentations, that you've met pioneers here at the State Department and in government service and in advocacy, who I know have been pioneers in the Hispanic and Latinx community. And I know many of you are pioneers. You're pioneers in your family, many being first generation in school, first generation in professional careers, first generations with the responsibilities of taking care of so many others. Pioneers of being an advocate, pioneers of pushing things forward. I hope that you see some of the ideas and programs that we're talking about today. We've tried to make it just a little easier so that you can explore those paths that we're talking about, and that we've laid some of the foundation to make sure that you can move forward and that you're continuing that foundation for those behind you. 2, you never know where life's going to take you. And I think a theme that you've heard, we've got someone who is a pilot on this panel and now is in charge of almost every Hispanic serving institution and the advocates for them here in Washington, D.C. That's incredible because you never know what's next. And when you leave an open mind, it's incredible where that will take you. And then the 3rd is please ask all your questions. We are all here because we love working with students. That's why we join these careers. We love developing and promoting and pushing our next generation of leaders. So please, please make sure to have this dialogue with us. We want to make sure everything is answered for you. We are so proud to celebrate our Hispanic and Latinx community here and talk about how you can be an advocate here in government as well with our foreign service officers that you've met already. Lysette, thanks so much. I can't wait for the conversation.
Thank you for being here this afternoon. I'm so looking forward to our discussion. As individuals who are personally and professionally invested in seeing equity in access and prosperity for Hispanic voices, I do want to get your insights on a number of topics. So I will begin by asking for you each to respond to a few questions I have. Then we will save time at the end for some questions and answers from the audience. And I would love to ask you all in the audience, please share your ideas and your responses to these questions in the Zoom chat as well, in addition to the questions for our panelists you may have. We can all learn from each other. So let's begin. Please tell us about the objectives and purpose of your agency or organization and the activities in which you are engaged. And Mr. Cadillo, I ask if you could kindly start for our panel.
Definitely, Lysette. Thank you so much. And so, you know, we're excited because we see the importance of educational equity. That is a main priority of Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona's work and also this administration. And so that's why on September 13th of this year, President Biden signed the executive order reestablishing the initiative. And what I like about the initiative is the word action, advancing. It's not just, as our previous name had been, educational excellence, prosperity. It's advancing because that is work that we need to continue. We need to work on that continuously. and that's on educational equity, ensuring that, you know, we're seeing where the gaps are at, and we're filling those gaps, ensuring that we're looking at areas that we may not have known or may not have seen, and are acting on that to ensure our students have the resources to succeed in schools, to have the resources to be competitive for those top jobs in the top job markets, to ensure our families are supported, you know, in the classroom, on technology issues, technology equipment, and so forth, and ensuring that we're breaking down barriers, especially in post-secondary education, to ensure our students are able to complete college and obtain the educational attainment where they want to obtain. In addition, we want to highlight the best practices that are happening. There's so much that's happening already across the country, including Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, that, you know, they're excelling. You know, whether it's highlighting our 38 blue ribbon schools that have achieved the top schools, one of the top recognitions of our public schools across the country. You know, I was just in an event looking at some amazing mentorship programs that are doing great work in helping our students achieve their dreams through role models, investing their time to support them. To let them say that your educational journey, you're not doing it by yourself. We're here como un comunidad supporting you. And of course, it's educational opportunity. It's ensuring that not only are we helping our students in the support in the academic realm, but also preparing for the workforce, meaning those opportunities for these internships, for study abroad opportunities, to learn more about what's going on around the world, for fellowships and other opportunities to ensure that our students are well balanced holistically to be able to get those jobs and follow their dreams that they would like. And so that's the work that we're doing all throughout in regards to the whole entire educational spectrum, from our little ones in pre-K all to those and to our students in post-secondary education and beyond. And so that's just a little bit about the work that we're doing here.
Thank you, Mr. Calvillo. Next, I'd like to ask Ms. Gonzalez-Scott.
Sure. So the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, which I'll just say CHCI for now to make it shorter, is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and our mission is to develop the next generation of Latino leaders. The organization's been around since 1978, and since then, the objectives have really been twofold. One is our program, so to provide leadership, public service, and policy experiences to outstanding Latinx students and young professionals. We have programs, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, from high school students all the way up to post-grad, so folks with their JDs, masters, doctorates sometimes as well. And then two, to convene members of Congress and other public officials, corporate executives, nonprofit advocates, and thought leaders to discuss issues facing the nation and specifically the Hispanic community. As Vice President of Programs, I have the honor of leading the team that runs the leadership and professional development programs that are designed for emerging Latinx leaders who are considering a career in public policy. And one of the things I often like to say is that, you know, there aren't that many folks, and I think this goes back to what Emmanuel was saying earlier, that from a young age are saying, like, I want a career in public policy, because what does that mean, right? Even when we are recruiting and talking to college students, you know, we have a lot of programs that are specific for different degrees. And oftentimes people think that these programs are created just for poli-sci majors, which is such a missed opportunity given that policy impacts all of us and all of our industries in so many different ways. So it's an opportunity to really expand your mind in terms of how you can influence your industry through the lens of public policy. And as I mentioned, our programs are designed for high school students, current college students, recent college grads, and post-grads with their master's or JD. And then that second piece that I was talking about, as a convener, CHCI also hosts an annual leadership conference. We actually just had ours about 2 weeks ago. And it's actually the largest and most influential Hispanic nonpartisan event held in Washington, DC every year that brings together leaders, again, from the public and private sector to have conversations on a variety of policy issues impacting our nation and the Latino community. We also host an annual gala, lovingly known as the Latino Prom in DC, and a number of issue-based summits throughout the year.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gonzalez-Scott. Hopefully I'll have a chance to go to Latina Prom if COVID allows. Next, I'd like to open up the floor to Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Lysette. So as I stated earlier, I have the distinct pleasure and honor of advocating on behalf of HAKU and its 569 HSIs, and HSIs stand for Hispanic Serving Institutions. And as I shared earlier, our 569 HSIs represent 5.3 million students nationwide. What we do, obviously, is advocate on the Hill for policy that helps enhance educational excellence for our Latino students. And specifically, we're looking at ways in which we can assist in creating more robust research programs and policy and procedures on our campuses, ways in which we can strengthen academic excellence in the programs on campuses, and ways in which we can bring internships and internship opportunities to our campuses. One of the other areas that we focus on heavily is providing federal internships as well as corporate internships for our HSI institutions. And since 1992, HAKU, their internship program, has placed over 14,000 students in federal agencies. So that's amazing, and it's an incredible opportunity. So again, just absolutely delighted and excited to be here, and I look forward to answering any questions that anyone might have when that time is right.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. And my Deputy Assistant Secretary, Mr. Rosenzweig.
Thanks, Lysette. Caroline, my stomach's churning because I'm thinking about the prom and like the pictures and who I've got to invite. So now you got me nervous about when this happens again. So I can't wait to know more about it. I work at the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs with Lysette, as you all know, and I thought it would be easier to explain what we do with an example. If you remember when you were in high school or in college, when other students from across the world would be in your class for a semester or for a year, or you had a family come and visit from a part of the world, we call that person-to-person diplomacy, because the best information that people receive is life experience, is interacting on a one-on-one in a small group environment. So here at the State Department, we have an entire bureau that Lysette and I work with, where we're creating and implementing programs that allow for that person-to-person exchange. It's not just a study abroad program that you may be familiar with. It could be a short-term professional exchange where a teacher goes abroad for a few weeks. It could be a cultural exchange where we have musicians travel in both directions of two different countries. We have sports diplomacy where we have athletes from all over the world that travel here in America, and our athletes go overseas and teach sports or just interact to talk about our culture, our values, and the democratic principles that make our country what it is today. These are opportunities for everyone on this call to become involved, whether it's through the Fulbright program, which we'll talk about, through the Gilman program, which allows undergraduates to study abroad, which is one of my favorite programs to talk about, or if it's just a short leadership training program that allows you to interact with future leaders from across the world, whether it's the Mandela Fellows from Africa or leaders in the Asian region as well. Over 350,000 students, scholars, teachers, artists, sports professionals participate in these programs. And I thought it was very telling that Secretary Blinken, who's the Secretary of State here at the Department of State, and Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, released a joint statement. And for those that are government junkies and political science majors out there, you'll know that these joint statements are quite powerful because they represent the government's values and compass of policy. And they released this joint statement on international education, which reinforces the need that all Americans need to be equipped with global and cultural competencies. And so that's kind of the guiding principle of what we do. I'm looking forward to talking more about it soon, and how our Hispanic and Latinx communities are such an important and valued part of this, because most importantly, it provides more opportunity for us to see the country for who we are. And two, it builds a pipeline for people who want to be foreign service officers. You saw a video before we came on from the ambassador for Croatia, one of the longest serving Hispanic American foreign service officers that we have. We want you to be able to do that, and these programs help you get there. Thanks, Lysa.
Terrific. On to my second question. How does your agency or organization support growth in equity, access, and prosperity for underserved audiences? Dr. Rodriguez, would you kindly start us off?
Sorry about that. Thank you. Let me start by reiterating the fact that part of what our organization does is advocating for policy on the Hill. And a lot of what we do to advance equity, access, and prosperity for our HSIs, our Hispanic Serving institutions, is to advocate for increased scholarship money, funding for our programming, increasing curriculum, bringing new programs to our students. Broadband is another issue and concern that will assist in closing the gap with our underserved populations at our institutions, looking at such things as Pell Grants and increasing Pell Grants. So our role is to look at various policies and then advocate on behalf of our students, the 5.3 million that attend our Hispanic serving institutions across the country.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Next, Das Rosenzweig, would you kindly go?
Absolutely, thanks. So I think the first point is that President Biden has, by executive order, made diversity and inclusion a cornerstone for every policy decision, every government interaction as his administration. And so what that means is that my colleagues like Lena and Caroline and others who want to have that dialogue, we're going to engage in that. And sometimes we may need to have numerous dialogues and tougher conversations, but having that value goal by President Biden means that we're going to keep working towards DEI and keep working towards ensuring that there's access for everyone in all of our programs. I think that's the first and most important, is that this is not just one component. You're going to see this throughout government and everything that we're doing. The second thing here at the Bureau is that we will make sure that our exchange programs, our professional access programs, our cultural programs, that DEI principles are built into all of them. That doesn't mean just ensuring that those who participate represent our country's population. That's one step. The harder step is ensuring that people feel included. And that means ensuring that inclusion is a cornerstone in how we do our programs, and how people feel when we're onboarding, and how people feel with the types of substance that we're providing, and what type of feedback, and where are the mentorship opportunities. That's the tough part, and that's the part that we're working on now and that you're going to see. So it's one, a diversity aspect of ensuring that everyone is included, and two, once people are included, that they feel welcomed and empowered to reach their most potential.
Thank you so much, Das Rosenzweig. Last but not least, or excuse me, not last but not least, we still have two more of our panelists. I want to now give the floor over to Ms. Gonzalez-Scott.
Thank you. So I think one of the best ways to expand equity, access, and prosperity for Hispanics is to really ensure that our lived experiences are accounted for and understood in the policymaking process. And one of the best ways to do that, kind of as it was just shared, means we need to be in those spaces, like physically be in those spaces, and also be included in the process. So it's about being there, but also having your voice heard. CHCI programs exist to provide access and opportunity to individuals who've historically been underrepresented, not only on Capitol Hill, but in all policymaking and policy influencing sectors. Specifically our college internship program, our public policy fellowship program, and our graduate fellowship program combine leadership training, so opportunities to critically reflect on how you want to show up as a leader, along with experiential learning, meaning participants spend 4 days of each week completing an internship on Capitol Hill, and depending on the program, sometimes off the Hill in federal agencies, NGOs, and in the White House. Actually, Manny's office has hosted many of our fellows over the years. So there's a lot of partnership there. I believe most of today's audience are either graduate students or recent grads. So I'll talk a little bit about our graduate fellowship program in particular that's designed to support emerging leaders who've specialized in a variety of areas. So we have engineers, we have educators, folks who've studied health policy, urban planning, business, just to name a few. To secure job opportunities that are at the intersection of their area of expertise and policy. Just this last year, despite the fact that our program and placements were virtual, 86% of our graduate fellows and 80% of all of our fellows secured jobs as soon as they were done with the fellowship, all again in the policy sphere. So just to give you a sense of both opportunity and access again, and what these fellowships and internships can provide.
4 out of every 5 securing jobs out of the fellowship is really remarkable. And I'd love to now give this question over to Mr. Caudillo.
Well, thank you. And so the work of equity plays a central role to what we do. And a lot that we do are 2 things, out of many, but I'll share 2 here. One is we want to be able to hear from our stakeholders. And our stakeholders is wide. It's not just principals and university presidents or superintendents. We also want to hear about those who are running nonprofit programs, our teachers, our students, and our families. Because in order to know what's happening across the country, we have to go down to you. And so one of the things that how we're trying to work in regards to equity is to bring more people to the table, to hear your perspectives, viewpoints, to see what's missing, what's out there that we may not know about. Because what we do is we take that information and be able to share it with our colleagues here at the U.S. Department of Education, or also to the White House as well, to say, hey, this is what we're hearing from our comunidad in regards to education in these areas that we need to let people know. And what's always amazing is how people get surprised when they get an invitation from us. Like, we would like to hear you be part of this roundtable. And they're like, what? They want to hear from us? I'm like, yes, because you provide us a perspective we want to hear. And so, to us, we want to be able to talk with folks, from all over to ensure that we're going on the right path in regards to advancing educational equity. In addition, something that's part of the initiative is a thing called the Federal Interagency Working Group. And this is where we're able to work with our colleagues from across the federal government, from cabinet agencies like the Department of State, the Department of Agriculture, to some of our independent agencies like NASA, the National Science Foundation, FDIC, CIA, you name it. It's like if they have a .gov in their email, we want them to be part of the Federal Agency Working Group, because it's from there that we're able to collaborate on the different issues facing our Hispanic community. It's there that we're able to remind our agencies to ensure that they're providing the internship opportunities to our community, for grant opportunities to our Hispanic serving institutions, to ensure that they're keeping the Hispanic community in mind in regards to the things that are happening. But in addition, we're actually there to help them share about their programs and their initiatives that they have. And I'll be honest with the new diversity and inclusivity executive order signed by the president. there's been a lot of work where the agencies are doing that, and it's been great to see. And so that's something where we're partnering up, saying we want to make sure we get the word out. Well, let's collaborate to ensure that that our Hispanic community is a part of that. And so those are just some of the things that we're working to try to advance equity here in the executive branch.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Mr. Cadillo. My last question before we open up the floor to questions and from our audience, could you please provide 1 or 2 examples of your agency or organization's initiatives aimed at expanding equity, access, and prosperity for Hispanics? And Ms. Gonzalez-Scott, would you please begin for the panel?
Sure. So I'm trying to think, this isn't necessarily like a specific example, but I would say one of the best examples, I guess, that I can provide is that we have an alumni association that is over 4,000 individuals strong. We currently have 6 Latinx chiefs of staff on the Hill, all CHCI alums, several presidential appointees in various federal agencies, including the administrator of the Small Business Administration and the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Economic Development, all CHCI alums. And as I think about equity, access, and prosperity for Hispanics, slowly we are making changes in a system that's historically been white dominant. And I'm proud that CHCI continues to play a role in just supporting the development of leaders to do this work.
Terrific. Mr. Cadillo?
I would say one example that we have is be able to share opportunities. A lot of times it's the lack of awareness of opportunities to be able to engage with the federal government. For instance, when it comes to internships, we have an internship working bank where we're able to collect the different opportunities for our students from all the federal agencies to know about these opportunities that they're able to apply for. And it's something that we would like to do, to be able to share that information out. We have others coming up in regards to fellowships and other items. And to us, it's ensuring that our students know about these opportunities, about these grant opportunities, to know that they're available here, but also go beyond that as well, is to now even look to working with our federal agencies and saying, let's work together to ensure we're not just advertising these programs, but how can we ensure that in our process, on our back end, that we're also fulfilling that work too, to ensure that it's the language that we send out to our students. It's something that's cultural relevant. It's ensuring that, we are, making ways to ensure our students not just enter, whether you're interning or working for our government, but also, that they feel comfortable working in here as well. And so that's, I think, it's one way. Is that one thing that we do is pass around that information, just to know that it's out there. It's, empowering our counselors and our career service staff at our HSIs and college and universities about these opportunities that they could share to their students, especially in the schools and in college and universities that are high Hispanic.
Thank you. Das Rosenzweig?
All right, sorry about that. I feel like my parents right now trying to get the mute button to work there. There are 2 programs I want to talk about specifically because of the broad range of opportunities for everyone that's participating now. The first one is for undergraduate students. We know that if you go on an exchange program and you're exposed to international experiences, international culture, and you even have dreamed a little bit about entering a career that has some international component, going abroad is going to help cement whether that's the right path for you and either excite you or help you clarify your goals. But we also know that for a lot of people, especially first-generation students that are in community colleges, and other access points, that going abroad is a financial commitment that a lot of people can't fathom balancing with all your responsibilities. So we have a program called the Gilman Scholars. That's a federal program that's here at the Department of State, where if a student's on a Pell Grant and other opportunities, that they will be given a grant to go abroad to help cover those expenses, such as airfare and other expenses. They can participate in their university's study abroad program. And what's interesting, especially and for for Hispanic Heritage Month and for our Hispanic and Latinx community on the call today, on the webinar today, is that 3 times as many Hispanic students are part of the Gilman program than those that study abroad generally. That's huge. That is a huge impact. So I hope people will look into that Gilman program. And I know that we're putting those links up for people to have access on the web to find out about that. The second program is for those that have graduated college or a postgraduate program. It's called the Fulbright program, and many people have heard of it. The Fulbright program is an opportunity to do advanced study or scholarship or professional experience abroad. And we offer thousands of grants annually. This is the 75th anniversary of the program. But what's more relevant here is that we are pushing for that program to represent more of our Latinx and Hispanic communities today. We have a Fulbright Latinx affinity group. In a few weeks, we're going to be announcing the launch of our Fulbright Hispanic Serving Institution Leadership Initiative, where we're going to celebrate our top HSI schools who are pushing Fulbright. Fulbrights come from every institution across the country and on our territories. So our goal is to make sure that everyone knows about it, to give that opportunity here. So a Fulbright program and the Gilman program, I hope everyone will take advantage of.
I couldn't agree more, Das Rosenzweig. And last, Dr. Rodriguez.
Well, thank you. Over the last 30 years, we've had 14,000 students take advantage of our federal internships. And let me just say, these internships are paid internships, which is incredibly exciting. Some of the federal institutions that we work with or we partner with for these internships are federal institutions such as USDA, Department of Education, the CIA, Forest and Wildlife. I mean, I could go on and on and on, and I'm probably going to miss a million of our federal agencies that we have relationships with. But there is a plethora of opportunity in these types of internships and a variety of experiences that you can have by attending or participating in these internships. So I welcome questions about our internship program.
Thank you all. We did get a great question from the audience, and I'm going to open it to whomever feels compelled to share an answer. The question is, how do your organizations or agencies balance recruiting different types of diversity? Because of course we do know diversity is so much more than race and ethnicity. It's socioeconomic status, it's ability, it's geographic location, so on. So whomever feels compelled, this is a question that they'd like to take on.
I can speak first, I guess. I know everybody was like waiting to see. So yes, the short answer is yes, we do take that into consideration diversity. Our programs are specifically, of course, for folks who are who identify as Latinx, but we do look at geography. You know, in any given year for a program, you know, we often get, for example, lots of applicants from Texas and California, but we don't want the majority of our participants to just be from states with higher populations of Latinx communities. So we take into consideration geography. We take into consideration Hispanic heritage, because we do have individuals who, you know, come from all parts of the world. So we take that into consideration. We do ask about parental income, and that's mostly it's considered as a factor, but it's not necessarily. We try to keep our programs for more underrepresented communities in terms of low income or in terms of income, but it's not one of our largest factors. We're mostly just looking at diversity of heritage, gender, both male, female, or I should say both male, female, non-binary, and Hispanic heritage.
Lysa,
As Rosenzweig?
I wanted to add something, which is for a lot of the programs that I was talking about earlier, for our alums of those programs, by statute, you will have an advantage in the federal hiring practice. And we were talking about how we consider diversity. For a lot of our programs, these are targeted towards low income, first generation students who may not have a pipeline into the federal government, especially into federal government management, into foreign service, into policy initiatives. So going through these programs and then being given an advantage in the hiring process is a tremendous impact in diversifying our workforce beyond the traditional factors that the questioner had asked about.
I would just like to add that our internships are open to all of our HSIs. And as you may or may not know, our HSIs really reflect the fabric of society. So at our HSIs, we have not only Latino students, African American, Asian American, and of course, Caucasian students. So we open up our internships to all students at HSIs. However, we do encourage students from underrepresented communities to apply.
For us, it's very important that we get the viewpoint from the entire Hispanic community. We want to receive feedback on different educational issues. It's very important that we're able to ensure that there's a good representation amongst the Hispanic culture. It's not just I'm of Mexican descent. It's not just 100% Mexican information, but that's from all over. We also want to make sure that that we keep in mind even to who we share in our programs. We just did an event program in regards to event program we did, and we want to make sure that our panelists that we choose to present also reflect that diversity as well. We want to make sure that we have our Afro-Latinos represented. We want to make sure that we have different populations represented. Because with the Hispanic community, we're all over across the country, including in Puerto Rico, in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we want to make sure we get the perspective everywhere, from our traditional population bases that have been there historically to even the emerging communities as well. And so we try to do that in regards to ensuring we get that feedback, but also if we're doing programs sharing these effective practices, these bright spots, we want to make sure that's reflected as well.
Terrific. Thank you so much. We did get a pointed question to you, Das Rosenzweig, what is the level of specific education needed for the two programs you mentioned, both Fulbright and Gilman? And one of the other questions had to do with getting more information about these programs. And we have put a link in the chat for those who are interested, but I will let you take that question on level of education.
So for the Gilman program, we're looking for students who are in their undergraduate. And if you're in college right now, if you'll go to your study abroad office or your financial aid office, they will have more specifics about that as well, along with our website. So that's for the Gilman program. That's targeted towards undergraduate students. For the Fulbright, those are students. There's lots of different types of Fulbrights. So the one I think that'd be most relevant here is for students who have graduated undergraduate. So once you have graduated, you can be eligible for a Fulbright. There are some Fulbrights for students who are in their master's or postgraduate program and are trying to pursue some international research. You can do that as well. And then there are Fulbright programs for students who are teaching English abroad, as well as teacher exchanges and professional exchanges too. So undergraduate for Gilman, post-undergraduate for Fulbright.
Wonderful. And I think this about meets our time for the hour. Thank you so much, all four of you, for this robust conversation and the opportunity to learn from your expertise, experiences, ideas. And really, we hope that those in the audience are inspired to consider a career in foreign affairs among these great leaders on our panel. Thank you again to HECFA and GPA for organizing today's symposium. And again, thanks to our panelists for their participation. We wish you a successful rest of your program today.